And when we look at where we are today, more than half of our budget is devoted to digital marketing. And when we look at where we're making new investment, it is around the area of mobile and social, which is where all of the, today, opportunity is coming. Well, I think that one of the really profound changes with the consumer is that they're now in control. They're really defining brands, and particularly in the luxury space, where we used to need to control every aspect of brand presentation, of brand communications, right? Our imagery, all of our, content that was written or otherwise presented. We would worry about every word and to make sure that it's right and it delivered against the promise that we wanted to make. Well, the reality today is that we can still spend our time doing all of that, but the greatest influence is coming from what people are saying about us to each other. And so the really big shift that we made about 6 years ago was really to say, okay, in this new world order, where it's less about what we say about ourselves and more about what the consumer is saying about us, how do we become content marketers? How do we create content that doesn't feel as though it's commercial? When we first started to dabble in social, and it was about Facebook and it was about Twitter, what surprised us the most was that our guests were using it as a feedback mechanism to comment on their stays with us. And so we realized that we needed to be listening 24/7, and that we needed to set up an infrastructure where we could do that and be able to respond virtually immediately and in real time. I've always believed that marketing was an art and a science. And I probably, 25 or 30 years ago, felt that the art piece of it was more critical than the science piece of it. I now believe that it's mostly about the science. And it's really about the pendulum swinging. And then if I look to the future, it's about how we break down the silos even more. How do we take what we know about managing guest engagement and guest experience, and how do we think about that in a way that isn't marketing driven or operations driven or finance driven or analytics driven or revenue management driven, but is really focused on either the experience, the touch point, right, that specific interaction, or where it's matrixed in a way where teams of people come together around a segment of our business or a specific consumer. Right now, we're picking and choosing our channels because we don't have the resources to do what we think is an adequate job in every single one of them. And it was really traditional advertising that we walked away from over the last few years as we've really been creating in our industry, leadership around digital. However, I feel that not being represented in general or conventional image advertising has the potential to harm us if we allow it to go on much longer. Because there are still many guests who look to that to frame impressions of a brand, particularly if they don't have experience with it. So getting back into advertising is a priority for us. I have a much closer relationship today with our CIO than I ever did in the past. So it's really very interesting in our organization, I believe this is true of others as well, that the majority of the investment that's being made in systems and technology are tools and platforms and systems that marketing is driving, or that marketing is the greatest stakeholder in. And sort of figuring out the respective roles, I think, is less important, as it is that a CIO and a CMO have to be joined at the hip. When you think about the skill sets of marketers, particularly at a senior level, it is about driving the business, it is about driving growth, and it is about strategy and planning. And you can't uncouple marketing strategy from business strategy. And I think the CMO can be that key partner with the CFO in helping the CEO define the priorities for the organization and ultimately business strategy.